Hello, and welcome back to the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast. On this episode, my guest and I, Josh Norman from the Mountains and the Sea podcast, will be discussing Helllo, which is the B-side to Pop Life in the United States and Raspberry Beret in Europe. Welcome back to the show, Josh.
Hello, Jason. Thanks for having me back on.
Hello.
You knew we had to start there, right?
Yep. Hello.
Of course. Hello.
I'm not going to do a Jill Jones voice, though, so I'm just going to have to keep that just my normal speaking voice. So
let's not embarrass ourselves 10 seconds in.
No, not so quickly. We can do that later. We'll embarrass ourselves later.
Fair enough. That sounds good.
So, Josh, welcome back to the show. You've been on a couple times now, at least. I think we last collaborated on "Baby I'm a Star," if I remember correctly.
You are right.
So that was a full-fledged album song, and we did "Something in the Water" from 1999, which was an album song. But this is a B-side, so this is the first B-side we've done together.
Right.
Do you have any history with Helllo? Like, what's your recollection of the song? When did you first become aware of it and hear it for yourself?
I started actually purchasing Prince albums for myself in 1987. Sign of the Times was the first release day purchase that I made, and then started collecting from there, working backwards. And there was a vinyl store, a record store, not far from where I lived, and found the 12-inch single for Pop Life and had a record player that was half decent. And so, my first memory of the song was with a lot of pops and hisses on vinyl, because that was really the only way to get it then. And I remember transferring it to a cassette, making a recording of it so I could take it in the car, or have it on make myself a Mow the Lawn mixtape to put in my cassette Walkman. So hearing it now, just brings back those memories of being in my late teenage years and just starting to explore, and wow, it was just just the beginning of the Prince story, to come across Helllo as a B-side a couple years after it was released, and to start realizing there were all these awesome non-album tracks around. How could this not be on the album was kind of the question that, struck me all the time. So it was just kind of at the beginning of my Prince fandom, I guess you could say, is what I associate Helllo with.
For me, Helllo was a song that I didn't become aware of until the Hits and the B-Sides collection in '93.
Oh, really?
By '85, I had stopped buying. Well, I was never really buying 45s. That was my older sister's job. She was older. She had the job. She had the money. I was, a dead broke 10-year-old. Yep. So I didn't have the ability or the monetary means to buy records too often. So by that time, we were both buying tapes and recording songs off the radio when possible. So to buy a vinyl 45 for a B-side was just not something we were doing anymore in '85. So yeah. I totally missed out on this song. But honestly, as we'll get through the lyrics for the song Helllo, I definitely don't think I would have caught or understood the references being talked about in this song. Because I really just wasn't paying that close attention to any of the drama that was occurring at the time, any of the tabloid articles being written about Prince, all the kind of negative press that Prince was receiving at the time for his decision not to participate in the USA for Africa, We Are the World. All of that I missed, really.
Okay.
I wasn't paying attention to that level of tabloid culture at age 10. So the song would have had to have been appealing from a musical standpoint and maybe catchy from a chorus standpoint, because the verses I would not have understood what the references were. Mm-hmm. By the time you heard it, you were a little older than I was. So were you familiar with the story behind the song?
No, not at all. I had no idea. This was at a point where I would hear a song and I'd make up my own story to explain it away. So no, it was years later before I understood what the song was really about.
Yeah, the lyrics are interesting for sure, and once you know the story, it's like a puzzle. It comes together very nicely, and you get it. You get a lot of what he's saying in the song, but without the context and without knowing more about who Prince was hanging out with, and some of the more specific references that he makes in the verses, it is a very difficult song to parse through and figure out what's he talking about. And
definitely.
Yeah, that's my take.
Totally agree. And even just the confusion of, is this Wendy and Lisa's voice? Who is this singing with him? To not have that kind of information also makes it harder to understand, too.
The song, I don't know, for me, it's essentially like what the kids today call a clapback.
Yes.
Prince's detractors when he, declined to participate in the USA for Africa All-Star recording. So that occurred like in late January of 1985. And at this point, Prince was the biggest superstar musician in the world, practically. Purple Rain had elevated him to this superstar status. He was in the midst of a Purple Rain tour, which was supposed to be a world tour, ended up not being a world tour, but nevertheless, he was on tour. The movie was big. It was award season, so all of the accolades and awards were coming his way from Grammys. The Oscar nominations probably had all, or at least if they had not been given out, he was certainly going to probably be nominated for an Oscar for score for Purple Rain. So it was a big time for him, and making a decision not to participate in the We Are the World charity event, he probably took it maybe kind of lightly or didn't expect the kind of backlash that he received. I'm not sure, but he certainly received backlash. And there was a lot of rumors, I guess, going around about the reasons why. And people saying that it was because he didn't like Michael Jackson, or, the rivalry with Michael Jackson was too big. He didn't want to, his ego was too big. He didn't want to share the stage with all these lesser musicians. And I mean, I'm sure you've heard a ton of different rumors as well at the time, or not maybe at the time, but later on. Right. What were the reasons for not participating? What were some that you heard?
Yeah. Similar to what you heard, also just that he, typically would record very much in seclusion, didn't even want a recording engineer in the studio when he was laying down vocal tracks. And Susan Rogers had talked a lot, that she's around a lot now to tell these stories, but back 15, 20 years ago, she would, recount, him just wanting to be alone, candles, dark room, able to punch himself in, record his own vocals, and then call her or whoever the engineer was back in when he was done. So that was the main reason that I understood that he didn't want to participate was, he wasn't really much to fraternize with a lot of rock stars before 1985, with very few exceptions, like the Stevie Nicks story. Stand Back, that kind of thing, but not one to get up and jam with a bunch of, famous musicians at that point. So, yeah, I thought it was more personal, a little bit shy, not necessarily scared, but more like he wanted to do his own thing, which is something he had always done, rather than be a part of a bigger whole.
Yeah, and I guess even though, if Prince doesn't tell everybody why he's not participating, why isn't arguably the biggest star musician out there at the time, why is he not participating in this big event? Well, people are going to make up their own stories, and that's essentially what happened. I guess even as I was doing some research for this episode, I didn't know this at the time, and I didn't realize this until very recently, but Gary Trudeau, who is the comic book writer for Doonesbury, had written essentially a comic strip about this whole process. I don't know if it was originally a strip that was turned into a book or if it was always a book, but there's a book out there called Check Your Egos at the Door. And it's about the We Are the World recording and the whole process about that. And I guess I could not find any evidence online, but as the story goes, he decided to kind of embellish how it went down, and allegedly he told Quincy Jones he didn't want to be a part of it because Michael Jackson was involved, which I think is bullshit, but that's how the rumors get started. Somebody wants to put their words into somebody else's mouth and basically tell a story, which is it's a good story. Two rivals in the music industry, both at the top of their game, and both black musicians. Let's put pit them against each other. And
Yeah.
Prince's ego was the reason why, and that's what a lot of people believed. A lot of people believed that. I truly think.
Yeah, well, like you said, because there was no story from Prince himself, and he certainly wasn't going to respond to, things that weren't true, take the time out of his day to say that's not how it went. Like you said, it's easy to make up your own story, and rumors get started quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think there was another thing that happened around this time, maybe a little bit after, maybe like in the spring of '85. I had read somewhere. Actually, I was looking at the Rolling Stone article on Prince that was issued in September of '85, and
Okay.
so this was an interview that he did. This was the interview he did with I believe it was Neil Carlin. Let me double check that. Yeah, this is the article that he did with Neil Carlin, who now just recently released a Prince book himself. And in this article, it references a lot of like the rumor mill going around at the time. There was a new person for publications like National Enquirer to really kind of hone in on. And Prince didn't help himself in some respects by being very private, not giving interviews, and also exhibiting some what others would call maybe eccentric behaviors.
Yeah.
So that was certainly an opportunity for publications like the National Enquirer to capitalize on Prince's eccentricities and creating like this elaborate rumor mill and sell their magazines as a result. I don't know exactly what the National Enquirer was saying, but there is a reference or a comment about there being a recent National Enquirer article that was written that a lot of other publications then grabbed hold of and started issuing it and publicizing it as if it was fact.
Right.
And a lot of this, I think, Prince is also trying to address in this song as we go through the verses. It's not only just about the We Are the World. It has a bigger theme about celebrity culture and addressing some really specific rumors that were going around about Prince at the time. Yeah. And I think it would be good to probably start going through the lyrics to try to kind of talk through those and see what you and I decide where the basis of some of these lyrics came from.
All right, let's do it.
So the first verse after the intro of the song is "Hello, hello." You get that a few times, and you have different pitches of voices, whether or not it's Prince and Jill, and you got different even pitches of their own voices. So it's kind of a cool intro.
It is.
But you instantly are told what the song is called. Hello.
Yes, you are.
So in case you weren't sure. So, but the first verse of actual lyrics are, "I tried to tell them that I didn't want to sing, but I'd gladly write a song instead. They said, okay, and everything was cool, till a camera tried to get in my bed." All right, so right off the bat, he is addressing very clearly here the USA for Africa, We Are the World situation.
Right.
I tried to tell them, meaning Quincy, Michael, whoever, approached
the
him.
Organizers, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I tried to tell them that I didn't want to sing, meaning he didn't want to be just another guy on the stage, along with your Huey Lewis's and your Lionel Richies and your Cyndi Laupers. Not that he had anything against any of those musicians, but he just didn't want to be another guy on stage singing.
Yep.
I mean, Prince has a great voice. He obviously a very well accomplished singer, but he brings so much more to the table as a musician overall, that just sitting there singing 2 lines in a song wasn't going to be his strength. It really wasn't going to do anything for the song, I don't think. And he probably just figured I can offer something better.
Yeah, or I'll contribute an entire song and I'll sing and I'll play and I'll write it. Mm-hmm. And in his mind, that might have been doing more than just showing up, like you said, and singing a couple lines to the song. Yeah,
I mean, that's like bare minimum amount of effort, and it would be somebody else's words too, to the point that was made earlier. Not to call him a control freak, but he certainly liked to be in control of his artistry. Yeah. And he didn't often sing songs that other people wrote. That's just
Correct.
not something he really did.
Yeah,
And so for
very
him
rare.
to sing somebody else's words, to sing Michael Jackson's words, and not be allowed to create his own lyrics that he can sing himself, that just wasn't jiving with him, you know.
Yep.
He wasn't interested in that. And so he's like, "Yeah, I'll just do it. I'll just do an entire song. I mean, wouldn't that be better? Aren't you trying to?" I'm sure at that point there was probably talks about this being a full length album and not just a single.
Yeah. Right.
So if that was the case, yeah, you need a new song, because he contributed a whole new song for this album, this "We Are the World" album that was released. It wasn't just a previously recorded song that some people did, or a live version of a song.
Yeah,
I mean, those are the types.
Yeah, I did recorded the song and made a video too.
Exactly. So he put in a lot of effort to what he ended up providing. But by the time he did that, and by the time the "We Are the World" album came out, and then the All-Star concert happened, it was I wouldn't say too late, but there was already a lot of negative publicity around him declining. So it almost, some cynics would say he only participated and gave a song because he was getting a lot of negative press.
Yeah, but that wasn't the setup. It had just taken a long time for the song and the album to surface.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. I mean, we know better, but that's because he recorded For the Tears in Your Eyes just weeks after, the "We Are the World" was recorded.
Right.
So we know that it wasn't like he waited until he got bad press and then recorded a song to kind of, appease the detractors. That wasn't the case. We know that now.
Yep.
But I'm sure there was a lot of misinformation being tossed around, rumors started, and then people running with them as if they're facts, and that's just something that still happens today too. So it's
not a lot has changed.
No, it just happens faster now, I think.
Definitely faster, yeah.
So yeah, then basically saying here in this first verse that he felt like walked away from it, said no thanks, I'll give you a song, and felt like in his mind everything was cool, but till a camera tried to get in my bed, then kind of puts the blame on the publications, news outlets, people who make a living off of this type of journalism.
Yep, paparazzi.
Yeah, exactly. Literally a camera trying to get in my bed, referencing paparazzi with the camera line, and just those, like I said, those individuals who were looking to make their own money off of a controversy that involved a big superstar.
Right.
So then the refrain is just after he says, "Till a camera gets and try to get in my bed, hello, my bed, hello again," and there really isn't much of a chorus. There's sections of this song that are sung more than once that kind of feel like a chorus, but I don't know if they really are. So the chorus, and the only time they say hello is just in this context, like at the very beginning, and then when they say hello again after some lines of lyrics. And it makes me wonder now, why is the song even called Hello? I mean, it can call a lot of different things, right? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. Or would it have been better with a question mark after the word hello? Like, hello, here's the real story. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so then the next verse, I was sitting pretty with a beautiful friend, and in background you have Jill saying, "Oh, darling," when this man tries to get in the car. And Prince says, "Hey, Prince, come on, give us a smile, eh?" And he tries to put on this accent. I'm not sure exactly what kind of accent it is, but it's intended to be some sort of other alternate voice that he's putting on to represent the paparazzi. "No introduction. How you been? Just up yours, smile. That's right, you're a star." So this is now talking about, it's really kind of related to the same story, overarching story, but it's a different aspect. And this is really specific.
It is, yeah.
It's very specific. So I was sitting pretty with a beautiful friend. I guess the beautiful friend was Jill, as the story goes. I'm sure you have read up on the story as well. Yes. Why don't you, if you don't mind, kind of relating briefly what you understand the story to be of what happened here?
Oh, I think it was a story that, again, Susan Rogers told and has told many times before that it was Prince and Jill going out to a restaurant to eat, and that Prince entered the limo first and then Jill followed, and some photographer saw an opportunity with the door open to be bold enough to get in the back of the car with the two of them. And Prince's bodyguards acted quickly and pulled the cameraman or paparazzi, whatever you want to call this guy, out. And the guy, of course, the photographer had some kind of injury, dropped his camera, and then Prince's own bodyguards were charged with some kind of battery or something like that, is what I recall.
Yeah, that's basically what I read as well. And you can imagine the sensational headline.
Oh, yeah.
Superstar rocker Prince demands bodyguard beat up paparazzi.
Yes. Yeah, like he ordered this. Yeah, like this guy's clearly an intruder, completely. And that's why you have bodyguards. So they were doing their job, period.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the fact that, at that point, and it's happened countless times since this incident in '85, where a cameraman gets a little too close to a celebrity or somebody of interest. Said celebrity then defends themselves, or they feel like their well-being is being threatened. Yep. Attacks the cameraman, and then gets promptly sued afterwards for assault and battery, so on and so forth. So it's a very similar story that's been told so many times. And I mean, I don't feel sorry for the cameraman in this instance.
No, I do have a little bit of, I guess, empathy for him. I mean, this is his job. He probably gets paid for, getting an ultra rare photo, or the scoop is his livelihood. So if my family was depending on me to provide for them and I had to chase people into limousines, I would probably do it.
Right.
But then I probably also wouldn't be surprised if I was, manhandled a little bit too by bodyguards.
Yeah. You kind of have to expect a little bit of that. I mean, if you try to bum rush a stage, you're at a concert and you try to get on stage, you're not going to be politely told to leave, and it's all good.
Right. Excuse me, sir. You're not allowed up here. You don't get a verbal warning when you are that bold, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're lucky if you don't get tackled and knocked out. So
I want to know who this guy is, and does he know that his story ended up in a Prince song, and is he still alive today? That would be interesting. Yeah.
Good question. Be nice to know, wouldn't it? I'd like to think that this person caught wind of it at some point. Like, hey, I don't know if it was a friend that might have listened to the song. I mean, it was just a B-side, mind you, so it wasn't a huge hit. But I'd like to think that he at least knew that Prince did respond and did reference this incident in a song. I'd like to think that happened.
I hope so.
So yeah, that's what's going on here, and the fact that Prince definitely doesn't feel sorry for the photographer if he makes him out to be kind of a jerk. Up yours, smile. That's right, you're a star. Line really tells us that he doesn't have a lot of empathy for this photographer and what happened to him, because he certainly makes him out to be a real jerk, a real ass. And basically saying, like, you don't deserve privacy. You're a superstar now. So your access that people have to you should be 24/7 now. You don't have that right. You've given up that right by being a musician that has become an enormous superstar. So our access to you is our right. And we're taking that from you now by jumping into this limousine that you and your friend was meant just for you. So
yeah, which sounds absolutely ridiculously stupid when you explain it like the sane person that you are. You mentioned we talked about "Baby, I'm a Star," and I got to this line in this song when he says, "Up your smile, that's right, you're a star," and he's got this little background vocal with "star," and it reminded me of "Baby, I'm a Star," which we also spoke about months ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And he's in that song though. He's bringing it on. It's like, yeah, I want to be a star. I can't wait till this happens to me. And now in this song, it's like the The downside of fame.
It is. Let me explain to you what I've learned since I made Purple Rain.
Yeah, right. No introductions. People want your picture. They're just going to take it. Give us a smile. And, just thinking for myself, if I, it's not easy to put yourself in somebody's shoes who's living this kind of life because it's so unfathomable to most of us.
Yeah.
To be of that much interest to people where they would camp out outside your home or stalk you as you're out and about in public. And there's a reason for it because, the photos they take, exclusive photos, candid photos, they make a lot of money for them.
Yeah.
Like, as you mentioned, it's their livelihood. So you get the reasons for it, but I would imagine it would make anybody who doesn't thrive off of this kind of constant surveillance to just retreat in themselves, retreat into their cocoon, not literal cocoon, but your metaphorical cocoon, and be less open. I mean, Prince was that way already a little bit this time. He wasn't given a lot of interviews. I mean, the interview that he gave in the Rolling Stone issue that I referenced was his first interview since like 1982, early 83.
Yeah, so and he didn't even provide a photo to them. They had to use like a still from the Raspberry Beret video.
Yeah, exactly. A crappy still, too.
A very crappy one. Yeah.
The article's fascinating, and it's a great article. But yeah, there's nothing good from a photograph.
No. No, not at all.
So, yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things, once again, just to comment on celebrity culture overall, and just nothing's changed in 35 years. It really hasn't. It's exactly the same way it is today in 2020.
Like you said, the main difference is the speed at which it all makes it to consumers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. It was all being sold to magazines back then, and now it's sold to internet websites. That's the big difference.
Yep.
Let's say anything else with that section of lyrics, Josh? You wanted to mention?
I mean, I think that's it. I remember being surprised that verse was based on a real incident and not something that was just part of celebrity culture. That it was very, very honest, and of course Prince's side of it, since he's the one writing it, that it's just like he would have preferred it if the guy had said, "I'm sorry to intrude on your evening, Mr. Prince and Jill, but my name is, Carl McGillicuddy, and I'd love to take your picture for this magazine. May I do that? And how are you, by the way?"
Yeah. I'm sure even in those situations, you get asked that in that manner, even though it's a polite manner. You're asked that 50 times in one evening, it starts being less endearing, and you just get on with it. What do you want? You want a picture, right? Let's do this.
Right. Yeah.
So be careful what you ask for.
Exactly.
All right. So the next section of lines: you call them bodyguards, but I call them my friends. I guess I'm used to having them around. And cameras by nature like rewards. That's the trouble I get when I'm uptown.
Uh-huh.
So this section now is talking about somebody else that was really close to Prince at this time, even though this was about the time that he was starting to fall out with his bodyguard, Big Chick Huntsbury.
Yep.
Who's he has to be referring to here. I mean, you call them bodyguards, but I call them my friends. So that line, to me, clearly is referencing Big Chick, and kind of how he was. You didn't see Prince without him, basically. If he was out in public, you saw this enormous bear of a man next to him. Sometimes Prince is on his shoulders.
Right.
I forget what award show it was, but he was won an award, and he brought him on stage with him, I think, or at least walked him up to the stage.
It was something for Purple Rain, where you're in an auditorium with all kinds of security and among other celebrities that don't have bodyguards sitting with them. So I guess that's why it was just an extreme.
Yeah, it was a bit extreme, and it's definitely eccentric, and that's kind of what I was referring to earlier. It was a big award show, a lot of people watching, and so once again, you're watching this man walk up on stage with his bodyguard, and you're just kind of thinking to yourself, why does he feel the need to bring his bodyguard with him? So here's his response: you call them bodyguards, but I call them my friends. So that was kind of like his defending. I'm guessing it's like his defense of having Big Chick around all the time, and even attending award shows with them. And
Yeah.
whatnot. Is like he felt like he was a friend. Ultimately, of course, Big Chick was one of the old friends for sale
Right.
references, and uh, that song was recorded the same year as Hello, so it
Yeah.
wasn't too long after this song was recorded. This was in late May of '85. He recorded Hello,
Yes. Correct.
and there's a reference to Old Friends for Sale in that September issue of Rolling Stone
Okay.
that same year. So Neil had apparently been given early listen to Old Friends for Sale, and anybody who knows that version of Old Friends for Sale, not the version we got on the Vault,
Right.
it's in the late '90s, has much more pointed lyrics against certain
Yeah.
individuals.
Yeah. Much more personal. Yeah.
Much more personal. People that Prince really felt like betrayed by.
Right.
And so I'm guessing it wasn't too long after this that the two of them kind of had their falling out. But there's a book out there that kind of goes a little more in detail, and it's been widely publicized, and it's even in the book that he was really struggling. He, meaning Big Chick, was struggling with cocaine addiction at the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly how the story goes, but I think there was some sort of betrayal where he gave some personal information to people in order to, use that money for his addiction. So that, for Prince, that was a major betrayal, like personal information about him. He sold it to the highest bidder, Old Friends for Sale,
Yep.
just like the lyrics say.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just thought it was interesting, the timing, because the song wasn't that old when apparently they had falling out. So, but he's
Right.
referencing. I have to assume he's referencing him here in the song, because based off of when it was written, Big Chick was in the purple bubble at the time.
Exactly.
So then I guess I'm used to having him around. Yeah, he clearly was, at least for a few years there.
Yeah, to him that was normal. That's what I saw there. Like, you see it as weird, but this is something that I've grown used to. And Prince was a petite little man too. So, I mean, I can see why he would feel overwhelmed by crowds and, maybe a little bit of fear for his own safety.
Sure, makes sense. And then the other lines in here is just talking about the cameras again. So, and cameras by nature, like rewards, just kind of an interesting way for me, at least. I get from that is cameras need something to take a picture of. They need a subject.
Yeah.
That's their reward, is a juicy photo, something interesting that can be sold, and for monetary gain, obviously. And that's the trouble I get when I'm uptown. And there's just a reference to his beloved uptown Minneapolis.
Yeah, and usually, all references to Uptown are, this free space to be who you are without that kind of fear. And now all of a sudden, that's the first time and only time I can really think of him, kind of citing a downside of being quote unquote uptown is kind of having your privacy attacked.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Uptown's always been a really positive place in his songs. It's referenced a few times, and it's, like you said, it's always been a really a place for people to come together. Now here it's 1985. The fame has been has taken its toll already, and he hasn't even been super famous for that long.
Right,
So
it's happened very, very quickly.
it happened really quickly. It was the proverbial meteoric rise for him after Purple Rain.
For sure.
And probably felt like even in his safe spaces, there were people that he could not trust anymore, and all eyes looking at him. Where maybe before he could walk around a little bit less noticed. Those who did notice him, maybe it wasn't such a big deal because they were all cool. But now there's, I don't know, like this more devious side to some of the people who are noticing him, and with nefarious intentions. They're not just there to wish him well and to say hi. They're maybe there to take a photo or start a rumor, or maybe get him into trouble somehow.
Yeah, or use him as leverage to get paid themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. Not really interested in his well-being, just interested in what they can get out of him, essentially.
Right.
Okay, so then the next grouping of lines, because as I mentioned, there really isn't much of a chorus. It's just him singing different lines and grouping them together and then moving on. So he says here, I'm not afraid to die. Oh no, there's a better place. I eat what I want. Whole wheat toast, and I'm happy, and that's for sure. So it sounds weird when I just say it, because the way this section of the song is sung, this is more like a duet between him and Jill.
Right.
Jill follows behind each line with her own set of words. So when he says, I'm not afraid to die, she says, don't be afraid. He says, oh no, there's a better place, she says, because there's a better place to go. He says, I eat what I want. She says, you can eat what you want. I think it's Jill, isn't it? Or is it
Yes.
Jill and Prince? Okay. Yeah. And then he says, whole wheat toast, anything is cool in moderation. And then finally he says, I'm happy, and that's for sure. So when you group the first and second lines of, or the forefront and the background vocals together, it makes a little more sense. It's a little more, I don't know, the way they sing it, they kind of sing on top of each other a little bit. Yeah. So sometimes it's almost like you have to focus on one voice or the other to get the full picture of what's being said.
Right.
But I do like these lines. With the whole wheat toast, I eat what I want. Whole wheat toast. I'm guessing, and I tried really hard to find that National Enquirer article from 1985, which, trust me, it's really hard. 35-year-old magazine that, they I don't know how often they put out issues, but they put out a lot of issues. So yeah, you can imagine how many archived issues they might have. I could not find it, but my guess, and if somebody else knows differently or knows more specifically what was said, there was probably something in there about, Prince not, eating anything or just having a really weird diet. You know how like the diet fads would sometimes be embellished. Like, oh, Prince only eats purple food, or oh, Superstar Rocker only eats every other day. I don't know, just something weird,
A diet of eggplant only.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know exactly what was said, but I imagine there was something really kind of strange and troubling about his diet, and he's trying to address that here. I eat what I want. Whole wheat toast. Anything is cool in moderation. So in the article, the Neil Carlin article from September 85 in Rolling Stone, there's many mentions of food in that article.
Okay.
And I'm wondering if I don't want to say it was like something that was done intentionally to try to diffuse those rumors or to refute them, but there's certainly multiple mentions of food in here. There's mentions about lots of sweets. We kind of have learned over time that Prince had a sweet tooth, and so there's talks about cookies and things like that. And so for me, a lot of what this article is trying to do is Prince is like brought Neil into his home, into his Galpin house, or Galpin Boulevard home at the time, because Paisley Park wasn't built yet. And I feel a lot of it was Prince just trying to prove how just normal he was. This is my normal looking house. I don't live in this freaky mansion. I'm going to try to find the section where it talks about the National Enquirer article. One look at, and this is talking about the house. One look inside tells the undramatic story. Yes, it seems like the National Enquirer, whose Minneapolis Babylon expose of Prince was excerpted in numerous other newspapers this spring, was exaggerating. No, the man does not live in an armed fortress with only a food taster and wall-to-wall life-size murals of Marilyn Monroe to talk to. So that tells me that National Enquirer article is really sensational and had some pretty odd untruths in it that were, maybe Prince's publicist, maybe Prince himself was like, let's nip this in the bud right now. I'm going to bring this guy from Rolling Stone to my house, and he can see for himself how normal of a place it is and how normal I live.
Yeah. Didn't work, I don't think, because he kind of chased that I am normal thing for easily the next year. That was kind of the focus of his on-camera interview on the set of Under the Cherry Moon, in 1986, where he launched into it by saying, I just want to say that I'm just like you. I need air. I need water. These somewhat I don't know. They're a little trite now looking back at it. Like, well, of course, we know you're human. We get it. You have to go to the restroom just like the rest of us. But that was a constant message that he put forward, it seemed like, for a good year after the song came out, that he was trying to fight the image that he was different, that outside of, being in the studio and recording music. Outside of that, he was a normal person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of what this article is really digging into the mundane aspects of his life, and talking about his parents and his family and his upbringing in Minneapolis and his home and his friends. Mm-hmm. So Helllo had already been written and recorded, and it was released as the B-side to Pop Life, like I said, in the United States. Yeah. By the time this magazine article came out. But as I already mentioned, it was a B-side, so it wasn't going to... I mean, all the millions of people that bought Around the World in a Day weren't necessarily going to know this song unless they happened to buy the 45, because I don't think cassette singles were a thing yet.
No.
In 85.
No.
And maybe it was played on certain radio stations that were, kind of deviated from well-curated playlists, and they were more willing to play other things like B-sides to hit singles.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of people were never going to read or know this song or hear the lyrics. So this article was like the next step. I wrote a song about all this stuff that's been told about me and talked about me. Now I'm going to bring a reporter from the biggest music magazine in the world into my home just to prove it. And like you said, that was something he chased for a while there in the mid-'80s, to kind of get past some of the stuff that was being talked about him post Purple Rain.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not afraid to die. There's a better place to go. That's, he's mentioned that before in songs about better places to die. I mean, he'd written Moonbeam Levels by this time.
Correct. Yeah, which was often mistitled A Better Place to Die. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's just let's list a few ways that I'm normal. You shouldn't have this fascination with my private life because, like you, I eat a normal breakfast, and everything for me is in moderation, which might have been a little bit of an overstatement at that point because, most people who do things in moderation don't have full-time bodyguards. They don't have chefs. They don't have, this kind of thing. And to even say I'm happy, that's for sure. Like, I'm doing what I want to do, and I'm not that different from you, I think, is what we're getting here.
Yeah, yeah. And it just makes you wonder, though, it's like somebody who has to tell you that he's happy.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, like, are you trying too hard to convince yourself? We knew that he didn't really enjoy a lot of what the superstardom brought him. Sure, it brought him the freedom and the ability to build Paisley Park. That's a bonus, right? But and a lot of creative freedom that he wouldn't have had without the massive success of Purple Rain. But there's the downside, and he sang about that more than once. This is and so this song is almost like trying to convince us and himself that everything's cool, man. Everything's cool. I love my life.
Exactly.
Which I hope he did at the time, but yeah. This makes you wonder.
Yeah, or part of that big tall wall he was building for himself too.
Yeah, good point. The next grouping of lines is, "We're against hungry children. Our record stands tall. There's just as much hunger here at home. We'll do what we can. If y'all try to understand, a flower that has water will grow, and the child misunderstood will go." Hello. So I like the "We're against hungry children" line because it's like, I just always think of like, as opposed to being for hungry.
Yeah, like we promote starvation among the youngest of our souls. That's what we stand for.
It's just funny that he has to come out and say that. Like, we're against hungry children. We didn't participate in We Are the World, not because we think hungry kids in Africa aren't worth our time. We're against that too.
I feel like he almost had to say it though. Like, I know it's obvious, but look, I've got to tell you, people, it's not that we aren't in line with what this nonprofit effort stands for. But we've done this on our own too, and maybe that's what he was trying to get across here with Our Record Stands Tall.
Yeah.
He did a lot of stuff for children that went unnoticed, like the surprise concert he gave at a school for deaf children around the Purple Rain era, things like that. There was, a lot of goodwill going on there that kind of flew under the radar, because it's much more juicy to, say that Prince and Michael Jackson don't get along.
For sure. Yeah. That's a juicy article. That's a great headline, right?
Right. Prince headline. Loves children. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Lead balloon. That goes over like a lead balloon.
Yeah. And with really like the whole, there's just as much hunger at home. We're coming after Our Record Stands Tall. It's probably like a clue to anybody who's paying attention. Just because I didn't, or initially rebuffed offers to participate in a nonprofit that would raise money for starving children in the continent of Africa. Well, okay, it doesn't mean I don't care about children in Africa. My focus has been philanthropy domestically, and so that's really what he's just trying to say here. There's starving people in my northern Minneapolis that.
Totally.
To help. So
yeah, I think I say to this, fair point.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all right.
It is a fair point. So it's not like he's a selfish musician, or he wasn't trying to come across as selfish. He wanted to make it very clear. This is I take social ills seriously. I take starvation, homelessness, and hunger seriously, and famine seriously. And this is what I've done. And use my platform for. I'm not going to, cite all of the things that I've done, but just trust me. Our record stands tall. You want to know what we've done. You just got to ask around.
Yep.
Do some investigative journalism instead of sensational journalism, and you'll figure it out.
Yeah, a really good point. Yeah, instead of sending cameramen into my limousine, do your job in a real sense.
Yeah, but. Prince's rivalry with Michael Jackson sells more newspapers than Prince the philanthropist.
It does.
Raised this X amount of dollars for this cause. So, we'll do what we can. If y'all try to understand, a flower that has water will grow, and the child misunderstood will go. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I don't really get much more out of that besides what is literally he says there.
Right.
And then after the refrain of hello, 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 hello again, we get basically a repeat of the Hungry Children, Record Stands Tall. And so at that point, it's the same lyrics, and we don't get any new lyrics till the very end. He just says, Our record stands tall, give us time and love will show. And so this is a bit more of the love. I keep wanting to go back to hippie, and it's really not the appropriate terminology for me to be using, but the vibe of Around the World in a Day, which was brand new at the time the song was written and recorded. Granted, Around the World in a Day had been in the can for a while, for the most part, but it was just starting to get out there that Prince had this new direction, and he was taking a different approach with his lyrics, and he was talking about themes that were very different than his past, relationship-based and kind of dark sexual themes. This was more about like a utopian system and how you can find happiness within yourself. Give us time and love will show is just a line for me that really fits in well with the overarching theme of what he was putting out there in 1985 for us, the listeners. Talking about love, preaching love. So that is the lyrics to Hello. Now, I know there's a 12-inch extended remix version of that song.
Yeah.
With additional lyrics. I don't have them available to me. I've heard the song many times. Well, I shouldn't say many times, a handful of times. I just recently caught wind of the 12-inch version. I bought the vinyl for it not that long ago, maybe a year or so ago. Prior to that, I never heard it.
Oh,
I
really?
the extended remix of Hello. Yeah, no, it's
I'm saddened that this has not made it onto a digital release in any way,
I
shape, or
know.
form. And it was not on Ultimate. Like you said, the 7-inch version was on the hits, the B sides. They're just if you want the 12-inch version, you've got to either find vinyl or find a vinyl rip of it that someone has made available,
Yep.
which is a real shame. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not even available on YouTube.
No.
Well, if it is
Oh,
available, it's not authorized by the Prince estate.
right. It's not official. Yeah.
It's not an official version because I went digging for that as well, and it took me a while to find it. Like I had to really dig to find any version of the Hello extended remix.
And that is an officially released song. That is completely crazy to me.
Yeah.
I guess hopefully we'll get an Around the World in a Day super deluxe edition at some point, or at least a deluxe edition.
Yeah,
at
it
some
doesn't even have to be
point.
super.
Yeah, just give us all the stuff that was actually released in some form or fashion. And this is one of the few Prince songs that I can think of that was officially released in more than one version and still is not available on CD or as a download officially in any way. It's crazy.
Yep. Well, at this point, with all of the releases that have been coming through the pipeline for us, I imagine at this point there's no motivation for the estate to release it formally or officially until there's some sort of, like you said, some sort of deluxe edition of Around the World in a Day that will have all of these extended remixes and B-sides, or I don't know, some other special like record store day type exclusive. Something.
Yeah, or an anniversary occasion like 2025, the 40th anniversary of the album, maybe something like that.
Yeah, hint, hint.
Yeah.
That'd be great. I know it's only 2020. That's still 5 years away, but that'll be around the corner sooner than we know. And,
Yeah, it will be.
and with the release of like one big Prince release per year, with maybe a smaller side release,
Yeah.
it could take till 2025 to get around to Around the World of the Day. Who knows?
It could, and I'm okay with that as long as we get there and we all live to see it.
Yeah, right. You gotta live to see it. That's important.
Yeah.
Okay, so because of the difficulty of finding it, I'm not going to talk through the lyrics to the extended version. Just going to leave it with the official version that we have that we can find,
All right.
and then just leave it at that. But anybody who's interested in it, just seek it out, find it for yourself if you can, because it's really cool. I like the extended remix.
I wasn't sure if we were going to make it there or not, so can I just mention something that I
You
read?
absolutely can. Go for it. I'm not going to read the lyrics out, so this is just you. So
Okay, and this isn't even me. This was just something I found on diffuser.fm, so you can find it if you look up Prince Hello. Just Google it, you'll find it. But the way they extended version and his spoken word part that basically makes up the 12-inch version, I'm quoting from Diffuser now. As the relentlessly funky song comes to a close, Prince unleashes one of his best ever sermons with spoken words that fly as fast as bullets. In a spellbinding minute, Prince lays prophecy to today's online troll culture, fake news, and the overall mess society finds itself in. So I think that's a good enough teaser to seek that song out and find what Prince is saying here at the end. Well, that was really well written and well put.
Yeah, that is very cool. Yeah, I'll have to put a link to that article in the show notes so people can find it.
Awesome.
I hear he talks about shoes. That much I know.
Yes. Yep.
He talks about words and shoes.
Yes.
And I did get that out of it.
And that they're just something to stand in. Yeah.
Yep. So he's really just kind of expanding on the themes of what he's talking about here, about just,
Totally.
People can say whatever they want. It doesn't make it true. It doesn't make it right how much importance people are putting on words that other people say instead of just living their own truth or, being able to accept the fact that everybody's got something to say, but it doesn't mean what they're saying is something people need to hear or is even truthful whatsoever. So
Totally right. Yeah.
Yep, that's what I get from it. From what I can understand, I think it's a little bit like, to me, and I know I've seen this reference before, so it's not something that I thought of myself, but it's a bit like the Computer Blue hallway speech version.
Yes.
Where he's saying something, he's saying something that's really kind of important and cool and has a lot of importance and relative to the rest of the song, but it's not really easy to make out what's being said.
I think a lot of it is very purposeful too. His delivery of it is kind of this weird cadence, and I think that it's meant to be difficult. It's clearly spoken, but there are breaks where you don't expect them, and syllables where they don't belong. And I don't know how else to explain it really, but just a weird way of the delivery of it is unique and well thought out, which is great, but does impede sometimes on understanding exactly what's being said.
Yeah. I agree. I do remember that as well. It being a very uniquely sang song, at least that part of it.
For sure.
All right, Josh. Well, thank you. Thank you again for joining me. Thank you for expanding a little bit on the 12-inch remix and just kind of helping me talk through events that took place 35 years ago. So
yes, I'm so glad I was able to join you again, Jason. I always love it. So we need to do it sooner than later again.
Yeah, if we would have been a little older in 1985, we might have had more to say about our recollections of it. But there's still a lot out there that can help us put into context what was going on, recounts of the stories. A lot of secondhand, third-hand recounts of what occurred at that time when he declined to be on We Are the World, and and Prince wrote this song for us to listen to 35 years later to make sure the story stayed straight.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit of a blessing. Maybe neither you or I knew exactly what adulting entailed at that point. But had we known that then, we might be too old to be doing a podcast right now to recount it all. So win-win.
Possibly, yes, win-win for sure. All right, Josh. Well, thanks again. And why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and your podcast?
Oh, thanks. My wife and I host a podcast called The Mountains and the Sea. You can find us on Facebook. Just search Facebook for The Mountains and the Sea. We're also on Twitter. Our handle is at TMATS Podcast. That's TMATS for The Mountains and the Sea. And our podcast is, like yours, available on nearly every podcast platform that we can imagine. So you can find us and download us for free.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And, I really dig your guys' podcast. It's super entertaining. I love the dialogue that the two of you have. Being a married couple, you could tell that there's no, you're able to say things to each other that maybe two people that weren't married. You can riff on each other, dig each other a little bit when it's warranted, and it's all good in the end because you're a couple. So you guys can say what you want to each other. Well, she can say whatever she wants to you. Christy can say whatever she wants to you.
That is right. And she'll be listening to this podcast too, as well as me. So I'll watch what I even say here and just say that we have a great time recording it together. We've got a policy that we don't talk about the music until we sit down to do it. So nearly everything you hear is kind of our first time hearing the other's take on different songs. And for me, having listened to them for 35 plus years, there's never an episode that we record that I'm not surprised or learned something about my wife by her focusing on that music for a couple weeks in prep for it. It's always fun.
Yeah, I do have to say that is one of the cool things about your show that I like a lot is the fact that you don't rehearse, like you don't come together and decide exactly what you're going to say beforehand. You can tell a lot of it's off the cuff, and when you're surprised by something and Christy's surprised by something, it's very genuine. Like you can tell there's that surprise when somebody says something, not necessarily controversial, but maybe a differing opinion, than that you weren't expecting. You can definitely tell that it's the first time you've heard that, and vice versa. The first time she's heard something out of your mouth that she wasn't expecting or considered. So that's kind of cool.
I usually try to explain the expression on her face that I'm seeing when I'm saying something that she's surprised by or doesn't agree with, because that's pretty priceless. And where this is an audio podcast, so it's a lot like radio. The faces don't do much unless someone is there to explain it.
Yeah, no, but Christy's been on my show several times too, and I need to get her back on. Both great hosts and great people. So thanks again, Josh.
Awesome, Jason. Thanks for having me back on. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. And you can find my show anywhere as well, pretty much every podcast avenue that can be explored. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook as well, Press Rewind Pod. I recently started a Discord for the Press Rewind podcast as a place for people who are familiar with the platform, first of all, to go online and we can have real-time conversations about Prince's music, real-time conversations about Prince lyrics, suggestions for the podcast, alternate takes. I would get them in real time as opposed to an email or even like a direct message on Twitter. So if you are interested in Discord, you can find me there. The link to the Press Rewind podcast Discord will be in the show notes, and I have it in all of my social media pages in my bio, so you can find it there as well. Thank you again, and until next time, goodbye.